as this strange-looking person inspired by Leonardo da Vinci, but also wearing a pair of Luxottica sunglasses suggests. That's why Andrea Guerra is here from Luxottica, the way Leonardo del Vecchio decided to seize the world market and create the world's leading sunglasses company, and the youngest CEO among big Italian companies, first at Meloni and now at Luxottica. In the same category, and very much in a service industry, given that one of my principles is to look for ambition in services, because it's 75% of the Italian economy, and if you don't have a productive services sector, you don't have an economy. And Alessandro Profumo is here as well as an example of ambition, building one of Italy's great banks, creating one of the great pan-European banks of our era. Again, starting that role when he was young. He's about my age now, and he was about my age then. So I can count him as young now, but he was even younger when he started that exercise. Next slide, please. Of course, I was also looking always for innovators, for people bringing new ideas. Next slide. And those, of course, are all associated with the iPad, with software, with young people and so forth. But as well as iPads and software and so forth, I think there is also the innovators in the world of ideas, in the world of policy. One of the people with whom I've had conversations in the course of this book and before that have been both depressingly pessimistic and inspiringly optimistic is Roger Abravanel. He is often pessimistic about the future of Italy, frustrated about politics, about society, about companies. And yet, I've been encouraged by Roger because he keeps publishing books, trying to bring about change. Meritocrazia and now Regole. If he's really pessimistic, why would he write all these books, pushing these ideas, promoting change? I know full well, as a fellow author, that he's not doing it for the money. You don't make money by writing books. He's trying to change Italy, and I think that is inspiring, and that's why we invited Roger to come along to this panel. Next slide, please. Of course, we want a positive view, a sense of transformation, the sort of thing that changed Torino. Can we this evening help to advance our thinking about an agenda for Italy? That's the task of our debate. Next slide. We pass quickly over this fellow and this situation in politics, and we move swiftly to the next slide. I don't know how he made his way into my slides. But he kind of is an ever-present figure, I suppose, in Italy, I'm afraid. So then this strange Lenin figure is here. The conclusion, as you've really been told by many of the introducers of Forza, Italia, is that there are many energies, many creative forces, many positive tendencies in Italy. And the task that we should set ourselves is a task of liberation. What would it do to liberate? What would it take to liberate the Buona Italia? How can we release the energies that are there, the energies of ambition, of inspiration, of innovation, especially of the young, because that's very much the agenda of Rena as well. Next slide. Those of you who've struggled your way to chapter 10 of Forza, Italia will know that I have humbly produced a sort of political agenda, as Mayor Chiamparino suggested. Since I spent a long time writing editorials for The Economist, I can't resist making proposals. And so I suggested a liberal agenda that if I was a private advisor to a new Cavour, that I would suggest would be my priorities. And they were a new electoral law geared more towards consensus rather than the majoritarian idea, because I argue that the idea of having two alternating parties in government is a mistake in the Italian context, that Italy is not really suitable, I think, to having these two all power blocks. And the history of the last 15 years, in which neither alternative party has really become a true single party, I think confirms that view. Second, Labour. I believe that what Italy needs is to move to reform the labour laws towards laws that are fair, flexible and modern, and that apply to everybody, rather than having the current dual system for permanent contract workers and for precari. I believe justice should be reformed to make it both fair and efficient, because justice and the slowness of justice is an obstacle to industry, to innovation, to investment, both domestic and foreign, but also a great drag on society and the economy. I believe in enforcing competition. This brings me very close to Regole, to Abravanel's view, I think, that clear rules of open competition, well enforced, are vital. I believe in addressing the public finances to cut back the size of the state. I think it's going to happen in any way in the next few years by necessity, but I think it should happen by actual deliberate action. And finally, knowledge. An emphasis not just on changing the structures of universities, which is often the way the knowledge society is interpreted, but rather at making investments that facilitate knowledge, the use of knowledge, particularly super-fast broadband infrastructure to allow access to everyone for any purpose of any kind, but also incentives in universities and other institutions that turn professors into people serving customers as students, rather than being the producers in whose interests the universities are run. So those are my 6 humble proposals for a liberal agenda, but our panel probably has much better proposals, and you, this audience, I'm sure, has much better proposals. In an answer to an interesting interview I gave for an Italian women's magazine recently, which asked me, where do I learn everything from? Where do I get my information from? My answer, which was quite sincere and genuine, is that there is no place where I get my information. I get my information from people, from talking to people and listening to people, but particularly listening to people. And I look forward this evening to listening to you and to listening to my fellow panelists. Thank you.